It's the World Cup final. Your whole family is on the sofa. Your country just scored. Everyone goes insane. And then your phone buzzes. Someone in the group chat just sent, "Bro, watching football is haram." That question has started more arguments in Muslim households than almost anything else. Tonight, we're going through the full Islamic ruling. The scholars who say yes, the scholars who say no, the evidence on both sides. And by the end, you'll be able to make that decision yourself. No guilt trips, no easy answers, just the full picture. And look, I already know what some of you are thinking. You've been watching football your whole life. Your dad watches it. Your uncles watch it. You've celebrated goals in the masjid car park. And then one day, someone tells you it might be haram, and suddenly you don't know what to do with that information. This video is for you. Before we get into anything, I want to be upfront about something. There are genuine Islamic scholars, respected, qualified, knowledgeable scholars who say watching the World Cup is haram. And they have evidence, real evidence. We're not going to dismiss that. We're going to look at it properly, because that's the only honest way to do this. Hold on to 3 things before we start. What does Islam actually say about entertainment? Is it the football itself, or what comes with it? And where does your responsibility begin? We're coming back to all 3. Keep them. Right, intro done. Normally, this is where someone tells you the answer in the first 30 seconds, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. We're not doing that, because this topic deserves more than a 30-second take, and honestly, so do you. Let's go. First, let's understand what we're actually asking. Become on it haram. These are 3 completely different questions, and most arguments about this topic happen because 2 people are answering different ones. So before anyone says haram or halal, we need to know which question we're actually answering. Let's start with the one nobody talks about first. What does Islam actually say about entertainment in general? Here's something that might surprise you. Islam does not prohibit all entertainment. Not all of it. There are conditions, but the door is not closed. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself permitted and watched certain displays. Sahih al-Bukhari, Aisha reported that the Prophet watched a group of Abyssinians performing a martial spear display in the masjid on Eid. It wasn't entertainment in the modern sense. It was a physical, disciplined display of skill. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, stood and watched, with Aisha, in the masjid, on Eid. So the idea that Islam is a religion of pure restriction, that any form of enjoyment is automatically suspicious, that's not Islam. That's a misunderstanding of Islam. But permitting some forms of recreation does not mean all recreation is permitted. Islam has conditions. Let's look at them. And before we get into the conditions, I need you to hear what one scholar said about this specifically, because it changes the entire framing of this question. Stay with me. This is where it gets interesting. So what do scholars who say it's haram actually argue? Let's be fair to them. Their case is not weak. Argument 1. Wasting time. Quran 23:3. The believers are those who turn away from lahu, idle, useless matters that bring no benefit in this life or the next. The hadith. From the excellence of a person's Islam is leaving what does not concern him. The argument here is straightforward. Hours spent watching men kick a ball, hours that could be spent in dhikr, in Quran, in seeking knowledge, are hours that will be asked about on the Day of Judgment. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The 2 feet of a servant will not move on the Day of Judgment until he is asked about 4 things: his life, how he spent it; his knowledge, how he acted upon it; his wealth, how he earned and spent it; and his body, how he wore it out." That is a serious argument. Time is not neutral in Islam. Argument 2. What comes with the World Cup? Alcohol flowing in stadiums, music, and scholars who prohibit music consider this alone a serious issue. The mixing of men and women in ways that violate Islamic guidelines. Gambling, billions wagered on matches globally. The exposure to aura, Players and crowd members dressed in ways that Islamic guidelines on modesty do not permit a Muslim to look at. And players performing non-Islamic religious celebrations after scoring. Many scholars who say haram aren't saying football itself is the problem. They're saying the package it comes in is. Argument 3. Team loyalties that override Islamic brotherhood. When a Muslim celebrates his nation beating a Muslim-majority country, what does that say about where his loyalties lie? That's the question some scholars are asking, and it's not a small one. These are real arguments from real scholars. Now, the other side. And I promise you, the scholars who say it's not haram have arguments just as strong, possibly stronger. Scholars who permit watching the World Cup, including major contemporary scholars, make the following arguments. First, the principle of permissibility. The default ruling on all things is permissibility, unless there is evidence to prohibit it. This is not a loophole. This is a foundational principle of Islamic jurisprudence. The burden of proof in Islam is on prohibition, not on permission. If you want to say something is haram, you need evidence that it's haram, not just a feeling, not just discomfort. Evidence. Second, physical competition and strength are valued in Islam. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "A strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than a weak believer." Scholars who permit football argue that watching athletes compete at the highest level, disciplined, physical, skilled, is not inherently opposed to Islamic values. That is their position, and they have evidence for it. Third, and this is the argument that most people miss, the haram is not in the football. The haram is in the extras. Alcohol at the stadium, haram. Gambling on the match, haram. Missing salah to watch, haram. But the game itself? 22 men competing athletically? Many scholars who permit it say that is not the issue. Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen permitted watching sports in principle while cautioning against what accompanies it. Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi permitted football and sport as long as it doesn't lead to neglecting obligations. And the fourth argument, perhaps the most important one, Islam recognizes human nature. Quran 4:28, Allah wants to lighten your burdens, for mankind was created weak. Scholars who permit entertainment argue that a religion with no room for rest, no moments of permitted joy, no lawful recreation, is not how Allah designed this deen. And the evidence they point to supports that view. Okay, real talk. Do you enjoy watching football? Yes. Do you miss Salah to watch it? That's the question. Not, do you watch football, but what does football do to your Islam? Because that is the actual question, and we haven't answered it yet. Remember the third thing I told you to hold on to? Where does your responsibility begin? We're there. Here's what virtually every mainstream scholar on both sides agrees on. 1. Missing Salah for the World Cup? Haram. No debate, no gray area. None. 2. Gambling on matches? Haram. Betting apps, fantasy leagues with money, sweepstakes? The Prophet, peace be upon him, prohibited games of chance explicitly. Quran 5:90. O you who believe, indeed intoxicants, gambling, stone altars, and divining arrows are but defilement from the work of shaitan, so avoid it. 3. Alcohol. Haram. Whether you're at the stadium or buying it to watch at home, that's not a football question. That's Islam 101. 4. Neglecting your family, your work, your deen for weeks of non-stop football? That excess is what Islam warns against. Quran 7:31. And eat and drink, but be not excessive. Indeed, he does not like those who commit excess. Now, here's where it gets personal. If you watch the World Cup, pray all 5 Salah on time, avoid the haram that surrounds it, keep your obligations to your family, and you enjoy 90 minutes of football, is that haram? That is a question worth sitting with. And the honest answer is, consult a scholar you trust, reflect on your own intentions, and seek knowledge before you seek an easy answer. But here's something worth reflecting on. Whatever the ruling on football, one thing is clear. When this debate causes Muslims to attack each other, that is a problem in itself. Muslims calling each other haram for watching a game. Muslims leaving group chats over World Cup debates. Muslims making each other feel like failures of the faith over something scholars have genuinely disagreed about. There is a difference between holding an opinion on a ruling and treating a fellow Muslim with contempt over it. Quran 49:10. The believers are but brothers, so make peace between your brothers. You can have an opinion on the ruling. You can share your evidence. But calling a fellow Muslim haram for something scholars disagree on, that requires its own evidence. And before we close, there's one more thing. The real question isn't, is the World Cup haram? The real question is, what does your relationship with entertainment tell you about your relationship with Allah? If football brings you joy and you still pray, still give, still remember Allah, then maybe football is just football. But if football has become the thing that fills the emptiness, the thing you turn to instead of Salah, the thing that matters more than Jumu'ah, then the problem was never the football. The problem is what the football replaced. And that's a conversation between you and Allah, not you and a group chat. Is the World Cup haram? Scholars say yes. Scholars say no. Both have evidence. Both are Muslims. What virtually every mainstream scholar agrees on, missing Salah for it, haram. Gambling on it, haram. Alcohol at it, haram. Treating fellow Muslims with contempt over it, not acceptable. What remains genuinely disputed is the thing you'll need to research, reflect on, and decide for yourself. If you're unsure, the Prophet, peace be upon him, gave us a personal guide. Your challenge this week, before the next match, sit with this question for 5 minutes. Not the haram or halal question, the deeper one. What does your relationship with entertainment tell you about your relationship with Allah? Just 5 minutes. You might be surprised what you find. And drop your answer in the comments. Genuinely, I read them. Let's actually have the conversation properly. Every week on this channel, we take the questions Muslims are arguing about in group chats and we actually go through the evidence. No hot takes, no guilt trips, just the full picture. If that's something you need, you already know what to do. Assalamu alaikum.